My name, Samantha Rea Smith, 35, the youngest in our New York family. Last Sunday, we gathered around my parents' dining table in Brooklyn Heights, the usual roast beef and simmering resentment. I cleared my throat and announced I was aiming to buy a big house. My parents erupted in laughter. "You'll never afford a home like your sister's?" My mom sneered, her tone laced with scorn. My dad chuckled, leaning back. "Stick to your tech tinkering, Samantha." My sister, the family favorite, smirked from across the table. "She'll stay renting forever." She said her words, slicing through the room like a knife. The air grew thick, their mockery hanging heavy. I didn't fight back, didn't raise my voice. Instead, I smiled thinly, clutching a secret that would shatter their smugness. Minutes later, as they kept chuckling, my phone pinged with a confirmation from the bank. I didn't answer their calls earlier that week, panicked, bewildered. Now, face to face, I pulled out the deed papers and slid them across the table. "This is your house." "No, it's mine now." Their faces drained of color. They thought it was a prank, but the truth hit hard. I'd bought their $3 million home right out from under them. I'd spent years forging a path they couldn't fathom, and I was finished letting them belittle me. What unfolded next? Stay tuned. You won't see it coming. Hey, have you ever been dismissed by your own family like that? Share your experience in the comments and smash that subscribe button to catch how I flip their ridicule into regret. When I was little, the Smith family seemed unbreakable. In our Brooklyn Heights home weekends meant piling into the old station wagon for trips to Central Park, spreading blankets under the oaks for picnics with sandwiches my mom packed. My dad, Terry, Robert Smith, always organized the games, teaching us to toss a frisbee or spot birds in the trees. My mom, Rochelle Ellen Smith, kept everything running smooth, handing out juice boxes and wiping sticky hands. My sister, Amanda Grace Smith, 6 years older, was my idol. Then she'd push me on swings or share her candy stash when no one watched. We'd laugh until our sides hurt, feeling like nothing could touch us. Summer vacations took us upstate to the Catskills, where we'd rent a cabin by a lake, fishing at dawn, and building campfires at dusk. Terry would grill burgers, telling stories about his own childhood adventures, while Rochelle made s'mores, her laughter mixing with the crackle of flames. Amanda and I would splash in the water, racing to see who could swim farther or hike trails hand in hand. My uncle Robert Jonathan Smith and my Aunt Faye Lynn Smith often joined us. They lived nearby in Queens and loved those getaways. Robert would bring his guitar strumming tunes around the fire, and Faye baked pies that melted in your mouth. It was all simple, but it bonded us, a team against the world. As we got older, cracks started showing. By middle school, Amanda headed to college for business, and my parents' faces lit up whenever they mentioned her. "She's got real potential," Terry would say, beaming with approval. I admired her too at first, but when I expressed interest in coding and tech apps, their reactions shifted. "That's just a pastime, Samantha." Rochelle said her words sharp, like a dismissal. Terry agreed, pushing me toward something steady like accounting. I shrugged it off, figuring they'd warm up once I showed results, but they didn't. Phone calls home revolved around Amanda's wins top marks internships at big firms in Manhattan. She'd call with updates, and my parents would pass the phone around, praising her endlessly. Meanwhile, I tinkered in my room, building simple programs on my laptop, excited about creating apps that could solve problems. I'd email them snippets of code or demo links, hoping for encouragement, but got vague nods or questions like, "What's your real plan?" Amanda's graduation became a massive event, with a party in our backyard, inviting neighbors and extended family. Robert and Faye were there, toasting her success, saying she'd make the Smith name proud. I attended, smiling through it, but felt like background noise. When I scored my first coding gig as a freelancer, I shared the news over dinner. Rochelle interrupted. "Oh, Samantha, Amanda just landed a promotion at her finance job. Isn't that incredible?" I bit back a response, murmuring agreement before excusing myself. The favoritism sharpened over time. Amanda bought a luxury apartment in Midtown, and my parents bragged about it at every gathering, with Robert chiming in about her smart investments, and Faye nodding along, adding how she was the family's rising star. I'd sit quietly, my aspirations brushed aside as unrealistic. Tech's volatile, see, Terry would warn, his doubt heavy. Follow Amanda's lead for stability. I quit defending myself, keeping my progress hidden. By my early 20s, I shared less and less. The wall I built wasn't from lack of love, it stemmed from the constant sting of being second best. That distance fueled my focus as I moved to a small studio in Brooklyn, diving into app development full-time. Nights blurred into coding sessions, testing prototypes that gained traction online. My parents remained clueless, their world orbiting Amanda's achievements. Robert and Faye reinforced it during family visits, praising her latest deal or bonus. I nodded along, but inside a resolve grew. I wasn't their overlooked dreamer anymore. I was crafting something powerful, ready to eclipse their expectations. Every Sunday dinner at my parents' Brooklyn Heights house turned into a ritual of subtle digs. The table set with familiar china, but the atmosphere charged with comparisons. I'd drive over from my studio, bracing for the routine. Amanda would dominate, her business attire sharp against my casual clothes, recounting her latest boardroom triumph or her apartment's view of the skyline. Terry and Rochelle hung on her words, eyes sparkling with admiration. "That's our girl," Terry would declare, patting her back. Rochelle would echo, "You've always made us so proud." Robert and Faye, often there for these meals, added their approval. Robert clapping for her savvy deals, Faye gushing over her confidence. I'd push food around my plate, waiting for the pivot to me. It came without fail. "So Samantha's still messing with those apps?" Rochelle would ask, her pity evident. The word apps sounded trivial, like my tech work was a fleeting whim. I'd mutter about a new feature I was building, but Terry would interject, "Talk to Amanda about solid investments, she's got the knack." Amanda would smile condescendingly. "Tech's fun, Samantha, but it's not a sure thing." The room would quiet, all eyes on me for a reaction. I'd shrug, locking my frustration away. This wasn't isolated, it happened weekly for years. Amanda's highlights filled the air, her firm's mergers, her networking events, her new luxury car. My parents relished retelling her stories to friends or on calls with Robert and Faye, joining in treating her like the family benchmark. My efforts barely registered. Once I mentioned an app prototype that got positive feedback online. Faye glanced up. "That's cute, dear." Then back to Amanda. "Tell us about that big client you closed." I stopped sharing after that. Their concern masked as advice hurt more. "We want you secure," Terry would say firmly. "Amanda said you could be with something reliable." Reliable echoed like a judgment. To them, my late-night coding was a distraction, not a future. Amanda seized every opportunity to underscore it. "Still pursuing that digital dream?" She'd tease, her edge cutting. I'd nod, change topics, refusing their pity. Those dinners drove me deeper into isolation. I withheld the real updates, my apps gaining users, early revenue streams. They didn't inquire, so I didn't volunteer. Instead, I'd endure their praise for Amanda, my thoughts on my next code push. I wasn't just tinkering, I was building an enterprise they couldn't grasp. Each slight, each comparison ignited my determination. I'd leave with renewed fire, vowing to surpass their narrow views. They assumed my limits, but I was shattering them. That drive sustained me through their barbs. I held back, but my moment loomed. While my family saw me as struggling, I'd quietly launched a tech startup. In my Brooklyn studio, I'd hunch over my computer, refining algorithms and user interfaces. What began as freelance gigs evolved into my own app suite, focusing on productivity tools that streamlined workflows for businesses. 3 years ago, I released my flagship app, SR Tech Solutions, and it exploded. Downloads surged with features like AI-driven task automation catching corporate eyes, then subscriptions from coast to coast. Last year, revenue crossed seven figures, partnerships with firms in Silicon Alley pouring in. The only ones in on the full picture were Jonathan Kyle Smith, my business partner and cousin, and Heather Sue Smith, my closest friend. Jonathan, a numbers whiz with a finance background, teamed up early. We'd meet at cafes in Williamsburg, plotting growth over coffee. "You're dominating, Samantha," he'd say, pulling up charts showing user spikes. He managed finances while I handled development. Our all-nighters, fueled by pizza and strategy talks, built momentum. Jonathan believed when my family didn't. Hearing their dismissals, he'd roll his eyes. "They're blind. Push harder." Heather, a marketing expert I'd met through networking, became my confidant. Over brunches in the East Village, she'd hype my milestones. "This is your empire." She'd insist, her support unwavering. With each breakthrough, a viral update, a magazine nod, I felt empowered. But I kept it from Terry, Rochelle, Amanda, Robert, and Faye. Their skepticism had erected a barrier I wouldn't breach yet. Instead, their jabs motivated me. Rochelle calling my work a pastime, or Amanda's smirks about my digital dreams, sent me back to code fiercer. I wasn't seeking their validation anymore, just proving my strength to myself. My triumph was private, fiercely protected. Then I targeted a bold move. Learning Amanda's investment flop had strained family finances, I eyed their Brooklyn Heights home, the $3 million brownstone they'd mortgaged heavily. I began monitoring listings discreetly, heart-pounding at claiming it. I found it listed quietly through a broker, their debt mounting. Jonathan was my sole insider. "This is epic," he said, excited yet cautious. "Your statement." The process demanded rigor, analyzing valuations, negotiating with lenders, finalizing papers. My app revenue provided leverage, but each step felt covert. I'd review property photos during breaks, the high ceilings, the garden view, envisioning it as mine. I told no one in the family. They'd mocked me long enough. I denied them a chance to interfere. Heather kept me steady. One evening over wine at her place, she toasted to turning tables. I clinked glasses, focused ahead. Acquiring that house transcended ownership. It affirmed my value, rising above their diminishment. It symbolized my ascent, undeniable proof against their underestimation. One Sunday dinner stood out as the breaking point. I walked into my parents' Brooklyn Heights brownstone, the dining room alive with more chatter than usual. The table overflowed. Terry, Rochelle, Amanda, Robert, Faye, plus two of Amanda's finance colleagues, Lisa Marie Evans and Gregory Paul Turner, and a few neighbors who'd dropped in. Plates heaped with pot roast and vegetables steamed in the center. Amanda held the spotlight, her suit impeccable, spinning tales of her recent merger win. Rochelle passed sides, beaming, while Terry nodded proudly. Robert and Faye laughed along, Faye adding how Amanda's drive inspired everyone. I took my seat, pulse steady, ready to drop my line about the house. As apple pie hit the table, Faye's recipe, I seized the moment. "I'm planning to buy a major property soon," I stated, voice clear for all to hear. Silence dropped like a weight, faces turning toward me. Rochelle's spoon halted, eyes narrowing. "You'll never swing a place like Amanda's," she snapped, laughter bubbling up. Neighbors fidgeted, but Amanda leaned in, smirking. "She'll be scraping by eternally," she quipped, pulling chuckles from Lisa and Gregory. Terry shook his head. "Samantha, homes here run millions, think realistically." The group eyed me, anticipating collapse. "Amanda, this is serious," I countered, evenly meeting her gaze. Her smirk held firm. "Seriously, Samantha, stick to your app experiments." She shot back, condescension thick. Neighbors swapped looks, Lisa muffling a snicker. Terry piled on, "We're protecting you, don't overreach." The amplified scorn, with outsiders watching, crushed down. I could have unleashed everything, my startup's millions, the pending purchase of their home. But I held back, offering a tight smile, my anger concealed. Talk shifted to Amanda's colleagues praising her midtown pad. Terry and Rochelle soaked it in, Robert clapping Amanda's shoulder, Faye nodding enthusiastically. I sat with pie uneaten, their echoes, ringing never swing, scraping by realistically. Each jab landed, but I let them believe victory. The space-constricted stranger's stares heavy. I wasn't proving anything yet. I rose suddenly. I have code to debug. Rochelle frowned. Already? I nodded, dodging Amanda's triumphant look and the guests' curiosity. As I headed out, footsteps echoing, Terry murmured to neighbors, "She's always chased fantasies." I didn't glance back. In my car, hands on the wheel, thoughts raced. That $3 million brownstone wasn't a dream. It was nearly mine, papers inching forward amid their mounting debts from Amanda's failed venture. Their ridicule, Amanda's quips, Rochelle's pity, it all stoked my fire. I needed no faith from them. Mine sufficed unbreakable as I drove away. With the deal in motion, I pushed forward on acquiring the Brooklyn Heights brownstone. I contacted the broker handling their quiet listing, my app earnings giving me the upper hand in negotiations. The family's debts from Amanda's botched investment had forced the sale, and I moved swiftly to outbid any others. Jonathan handled the financials, reviewing documents late into the night. "This seals it," he said over a call, his voice steady with support. The bank approved quickly, my revenue streams proving solid collateral. Weeks passed in a blur of due diligence inspections, title searches, closing arrangements. Each update brought a thrill, picturing the keys in my hand. Heather joined for walkthroughs, her eyes wide at the potential. "Transform this into your vision," she suggested, pointing out spaces for a home office. I nodded, already planning. The house's classic features, high ceilings, original hardwood, aligned with my style, but I wanted updates to reflect my success. I hired contractors for minor renovations, fresh paint, modern fixtures in the kitchen, a tech setup in the living room for seamless integration. Jonathan kept tabs on the family's side, noting their desperation as notices piled up. "They're clueless, it's you," he reported, shaking his head. I didn't gloat, just focused. Heather helped curate furniture deliveries, sleek desks, ergonomic chairs, art pieces from local galleries. "Make it scream achievement," she said during one session, arranging shelves for my awards. The process built anticipation, each change a step toward claiming what they'd undervalued. As closing neared, I prepped for the reveal. No separate party, I'd time it for the next family dinner, letting them walk into my domain unaware. Jonathan and Heather were in on the plan, ready to witness. Their faces will be priceless. Heather laughed over coffee. I smiled, resolve firm. This wasn't mere revenge, it was reclamation. The next Sunday dinner arrived sooner than expected. I stepped into the Brooklyn Heights brownstone, now legally mine, though they didn't know yet, with the deed tucked in my bag. The dining room buzzed with familiar energy, Terry carving ham, Rochelle setting out sides. Amanda chatting animatedly about her latest pitch. Robert and Faye were there too, along with Lisa and Gregory again, plus a couple more neighbors. The air carried scents of baked potatoes and fresh bread, but tension simmered beneath. Amanda commanded attention, describing her firm's upcoming expansion. "It's a game changer," she boasted, drawing nods from everyone. Terry raised a glass, to Amanda's brilliance. Rochelle beamed, Faye adding, "You're unstoppable." Robert clapped her on the back, Lisa and Gregory praising her strategy. I sat quietly, letting them revel, my phone silent despite their earlier frantic messages about financial notices. As coffee poured, I cleared my throat. "About that property I mentioned last time." I began drawing eyes. Rochelle tilted her head curiously. "I've closed on one." Murmurs rippled, but Amanda smirked. "Must be a tiny spot in the outer boroughs." Laughter followed, Terry chuckling. "Good for you, starting small." I pulled out the papers, placing them center table. "Actually, it's this address, your brownstone. I own it now, $3 million paid in full." Gasps echoed. Rochelle's cup trembled. What impossible? Terry's face tightened, jaw set. Amanda's smirk evaporated, eyes wide. You're lying, she whispered. Robert stammered. How could you? Faye clutched her napkin, pale. Lisa and Gregory exchanged shocked glances. Neighbors frozen. I stood firm. Your debts from Amanda's investment flop made it available. My app success covered it. Terry tried to speak. We had no idea you had that kind of... He trailed off. Amanda laughed weakly. This is a joke, right? We didn't mean those comments. Rochelle nodded desperately. We're family, Samantha, proud of you now. Their words rang hollow pleas starting. I shook my head. Get out of my house. The command landed sharp. They stared, stunned. Please reconsider. Faye begged, hands shaking. Robert added, Where blood help us? I pointed to the door. You dismissed me for years. Live with your choices. They rose slowly, gathering belongings in silence. Amanda's face crumpled as she muttered, This ruins everything. As they filed out, neighbors whispering, I locked the door behind them. Jonathan and Heather arrived shortly after, having waited nearby. You did it, Jonathan said, hugging me. Heather grinned. Their regret is just beginning. In the days that followed, their world collapsed. Amanda's failed investment surfaced as a scandal at her firm. Embezzlement whispers led to her firing, her reputation shredded. She sold her midtown apartment at a loss, scrambling for work. Terry and Rochelle, stripped of the brownstone, moved to a cramped rental in Queens, their social circle shrinking as word spread. Robert and Faye distanced themselves, but their own finances suffered from tied loans, forcing cutbacks. They bombarded my phone with texts and voicemails begging for mercy. We're sorry, let us explain, Rochelle pleaded in one. Amanda's voice cracked. I never meant to hurt you this bad. Terry added, Family sticks together. I ignored them all, deleting without response. Their hounding turned desperate, showing up at my studio, but I had security turn them away. The final blow came when news outlets picked up Amanda's downfall, linking it to poor judgments, her name tarnished forever. I didn't intervene. Their pleas fell on deaf ears. I'd shown my truth, and their consequences sealed the cut. No turning back. After locking them out for good, I turned off their notifications and embraced the quiet. That act of cutting ties wasn't just closure, it was liberation from years of their shadows. I'd revealed my strength at that dinner, and their frantic attempts only proved they'd never truly seen me. My energy shifted to what counted: my tech startup, SR Tech Solutions, and the supporters who'd always had my back. The business thrived post-reveal. A fresh app update launched weeks later, selling subscriptions in record time. Companies from Boston to San Francisco sought collaborations, and I dove into innovations that felt like extensions of my journey. Every line of code, every user surge affirmed I'd created something enduring beyond their dismissal. I worked from the brownstone's new office. Its space is now a haven from past judgments. My success wasn't revenge, it was my defiance against every doubt they'd sown. In New York, the family's unraveling deepened. Amanda's scandal cost her everything: no job offers, friends ghosting, forced to a cheap walk-up in the Bronx. Terry and Rochelle faced eviction rumors from their rental, their pride shattered as former neighbors avoided them. Stories of the dinner spread through Brooklyn Heights, whispers at gatherings. They belittled her, and now look. Their boasts about Amanda flipped to silence, their status in tight-knit circles eroded by their blindness. Robert and Faye fared little better, selling assets to cover shared debts, their visits ceasing as regret set in. I didn't revel in it. Their fall wasn't my aim, just the fallout of their choices. I'd craved their approval once, but now I recognized it as a chain I no longer carried. Their messages faded, laced with unspoken remorse they'd never fully admit. Amanda sent one last, "We underestimated you." I left it unread. My true power came from those who valued me. Jonathan remained my anchor. We'd review metrics in the living room, his laughter filling the air as graphs climbed. "You're unstoppable, Samantha. He'd say, eyes full of respect. Heather was my spark. At a cafe brunch, she leaned in. You didn't just win, you redefined your story, untouchable by them. Their encouragement enveloped me stronger than lost family bonds. We marked victories, late nights toasting new features and ambitions. The brownstone pulsed with their backing. Reflecting their doubt had molded me. Every smirk from Amanda, pity from Rochelle, practicality push from Terry, it propelled me forward. But I proved to myself, not them. I'd forged my startup home joy not in spite, but to honor me. Their doubt was fuel. I emerged stronger. I needed no praise or remorse from them. My worth stemmed from my actions, decisions, and allies beside me. To anyone listening, remember, your value isn't set by doubters. It's in your grit, the roads you pave, the uplift from true supporters. My family thought they defined my bounds. I proved boundless. They bore the cost, broken ties, humbled egos. I paid in pain but gained truth, lived life. That's self-knowing strength. I'll advance free of their echoes. From this I learned, don't let others dictate your worth. Build and guard it yourself. It taught me resilience, warning you, don't undervalue loved ones or lose them eternally. The value, embrace self-respect, independence, keys to thriving amid doubt. Thanks for listening. If you've faced similar family drama, comment below, subscribe for more stories like this.